Wednesdays channel. And yes, there has been some random Wednesdays missing, but we are back, hopefully continuously from here on out. Today I'm going to be talking about a franchise that I've never really talked about on this channel, and that is the Scream franchise. Not one that necessarily grabs my attention as much as, like, say, Halloween or Friday the 13th. I don't think they're on par with those franchises. However, I still enjoy the films, most of them. We are going to be ranking them today, worst to best. So, there's no need to beat around the bush, you know what Scream is. We're just going to jump straight into this. So, at number 5, the worst of them all is Scream 3. Now, I remember when I was growing up, pretty much loving Scream 3. But on rewatch, realised just how bad it is. You know, there's some script issues. Sydney's barely in it. The killer's uninventive. The motive's terrible. And it all just feels like it's trying to close a chapter of a series that didn't really have too much of that story beat in there. You take the first 2 films, and they're completely connected, you know, by the killers are connected. Whereas you come to the 3rd one, and it's a killer that's not really connected with the rest of them. You know, it beats around the bush of what actually is going on in the series of films, and I think the later films do get that better. But unfortunately, part 3 just has so much trouble with it, you know. I mean, the setting alone, the setting is absolutely fine. I quite enjoy the setting, like, you know, the Hollywood thing. But it's a little bit, to this point nowadays, it's a little bit overdone. And unfortunately, Scream 3 just doesn't do it very well. So, Scream 3 is getting number 5. Now, number 4 is Scream 5. And this surprises me, to be fair. Now, I don't have any hate, per se, for Scream 5, but there are some nitpicks that make it weaker than the previous films that have come before. For instance, I can't get around the motive of the killers in this film. The fact that the stab series within the Scream films have sort of gone against each other, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing of a franchise getting ruined and it motivating them to make a better sequel in real life, for them to make a sequel based on those. It's very contrived. It's okay, you know. I have a lot of fun during the film. I've seen the film twice now, and you know, I do have a lot of fun with the film. It's just that, unfortunately, it just doesn't hit the beats of the earlier films that came before it. There are some issues here and there. They're trying to connect every character to the legacy character, you know, like Stu and Randy, Billy. All this. The Billy thing in this film as well is so out of place. Like, I know that in Scream 3 we had the whole ghost of Sydney's mother sort of haunting Sydney to a certain extent. However, that is pushed up to 11 here with Billy, and it just doesn't work in the Scream franchise, unfortunately. You know, unfortunately, it's not a film I don't necessarily hate. It's not a film I love. So, moving on now to number 3 on the list, and it is number 4, Scream 4. Now, Scream 4, you know, starts out terrible. Starts out absolutely awful. You know, that stupid fake out multiple times. These aren't the girls that we started with, sort of thing. It's shit. It feels something that they would put in a scary movie film. That's where it feels like it's suited. It does not work in the Scream franchise. Unfortunately, it just can't. There's just no way around it. there's no way of discerning it. The start-up of Scream 4 is terrible. However, the rest of the film is decent. You know, I like who the killer is. Surprised me who the killer is the first time around. The one killer, you know, something that I didn't mention beforehand. I'll have it up on screen. There are spoilers. So if you haven't watched the Scream films, where you've been living, but if you haven't watched all of them, or you're catching up now to watch the new one, there are spoilers all the way through this video. But, yeah, unfortunately, you know, the one killer is a little bit of a throwaway killer, whereas Jill is definitely a worthy killer. And the actress plays it off really well, very crazy, and I love it. You know, there is still issues here. This is the problem with me in the Scream films. That everyone except for probably the one that's going to be number one, there are some issues or some minor complaints in there. But it doesn't necessarily discern from the rest of the series and things like that, you know? Like, you can love a film so much, but there can still be some nitpicky problems with it. Instance, Endgame. There's a lot of nitpicky problems with it, however, Endgame is enjoyable. So, you know, you get one side of it and you get another side of it. That's what I have with the Scream franchise. So yeah, Scream 4 gets my third spot. My second spot, which this was probably the quickest list that I've ever made, going through films, and there's been films that have had 4 films, like Evil Dead, that I've struggled with. Right, so coming in at number 2, and you know, with this list, it didn't feel too much of a struggle to put what was going to be first or what was going to be second. I've had lists that are shorter than this, where I've struggled, whereas this one, no, I knew exactly where I was going to put each film. But number 2 is Scream 2. There are a lot of really good things in Scream 2. It still feels like it's in the same universe, whereas 3, 4 and 5 feel like they could be their own, with the same history, but just a few things tweaked. But this film feels like it's an absolute continuation of the original. They're in college, you know. There's some really good parts of this film that deserve this place. The killers are a little bit, so like, for instance, the initial killer, the one that's planned it all, is the mother of Billy Loomis. Now, while I dislike the whole related situation with Sydney in Scream 3, in this one it works. Simply because, you know, Billy Loomis was obviously a bit of a nutter anyway. And for his mother to, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, a mother will always protect their child. And in this instance, it just proves that no matter what the child does, the mother is always next to them. And that just comes across in this film. And also you've got the other killer, Derek. I have names in this franchise outside of Sidney Dewey and Gale, pretty much out my head. But the second killer, a little bit like Stu, however, Stu's craziness and what comes along in that final scene of Scream certainly is a little bit more woo, whereas this guy is more psychotic than Stu, and it works well. And the actor who plays him, I'm a big fan of the actor that plays him. Unfortunately, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. I can see it, but can't say it. But anyway, that is why I love this film now. There are parts of this film that really do justice to the first film. However, for me, number 1 is of course Scream, the one that started it all. the original Scream film is just so good that it can't be touched. You know, it does right with the meta. It does right with the way the killers are revealed. It does right by how it hides who the killers are. That is something I absolutely love in this film, is how the killers are not obvious, but at the same time, once you've watched it, you start to see some small little things, small little details that tell you that the killer, that these two are the killers, and it's one of the reasons why I absolutely love this film. And the whole storyline as well, around like Sydney being a little bit of a recluse, a bit depressed to a certain extent because of her mother and everything like that. And Billy plays on that. Billy plays on that big time. You know? The whole storyline across the board of Gail and Dewey, you know, they end up together, but they're not together in the later films, does feel a bit stretched out. Like, you know, I can understand that, like, you don't want to make it too perfect or too ideal, because in the real world it's not. But, you know, obviously the start of that relationship is very clear here. And just, you got to give credit to Neve Campbell, David Arquette and Courtney Cox for bringing such different take on a horror series. Usually you get one survivor in one film and then they die 3 or 4 films later, or even in the next film, they're gone. So it's a rarity to have a trilogy of survivors throughout the series. I absolutely love this film. The franchise itself, you know, could easily be one that it's not my favourite franchise. It's not my least favourite, but it's not my favourite. It's just not up there with Child's Play, Freddy, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th and Halloween. It's just not up there. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, as 2, maybe 3 good films in a series of films. There's 7, 8, 9 films in there, including that new one on Netflix. It all just sort of goes out the window with that series. At least with this one, there are still parts of films that you can like. There is parts of each film I like. You know, there are certain aspects of Scream 3 I still like, but however, it just pushes a little bit of the corniness and rides with it. Whereas this first film does everything right. Script's great. Just the whole cinematography of it all as well. There is no doubt in my mind that there is not going to be a film in the Scream franchise that will ever beat the original Scream. Of course, we have got Scream 6 being worked on right now. So that would be interesting to see where they go with that. But anyway, you know, it's just a quick video. I know Random Wednesdays usually you get something a little bit more intriguing. This one was rushed out a little bit. As you can probably tell, this recording isn't great as well, but unfortunately, it's what we're going to work with. Anyway, join me tomorrow for a review Thursday. Random review Thursday is what we'll call it, but basically what it is I'm going to see Uncharted tonight. So that will be my review for tomorrow. There will not be a review Thursday every Thursday. It is literally just when I go and see a new film. The review of it will come out on Thursday. Batman, for instance, I may be seeing Batman on the midnight showing on Thursday night, going into Friday morning. That review could wait until Thursday, so I could do a little bit more spoilery, because the film will be out a week by then. So I could do a few more spoilers in that review, rather than it being just a review of what I think of the film without spoiling it, because I'm not very good with spoilers. But anyway, I've been Scribbo. This has been Scribbo Sphere. I can barely talk today. I've been Scribbo. This has been Scribbo Sphere. Join me on Friday for Supernatural Season 2. We will finally get that out of the way as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time, folks.